Hey everybody, it's going to be a short one today, but what a day. Here we are, been covering COVID and market response and market analyst sentiment, and wow, this was the beginning back in March 2020. And what we're looking at right now are the number of daily infections in Washington state, but we change it to country and not a heck of a lot different. It's astonishing to see this with the vaccine that became available here, and so we'll poke over to Market Watch. I'm sure somebody will be doing an overlay of these charts at some point, but have a look at this. Here's the S&P, and this is March when COVID hit, and the market bounced right back, and you would see no correlation with this. Um, in the beginning, it seems so. This spike is so high, it's really distorting what these peaks and valleys used to look like. When we were back here in October, these waves seem to be more pronounced. Now, we do have also kind of a disturbing increase in hospital resource utilization. I understand that some folks may have come in for something else and they were tested and turned out to have COVID, but that's not really why they're in the hospital, but they would still make it into this chart. What's perhaps most meaningful is this one, and what the daily deaths are looking like. Much less profound. So that gives some reason of why the market has largely shrugged this off. But we've kind of moved to a place where there are still some lingering shutdowns. They would seem to be temporary, um, but still potentially facing them in the next couple weeks, or even people out sick and not able to do their jobs, and that um, having an impact as well. But it's really been about inflation and um, hitting record-breaking inflation. This is the first time I'm looking at this article here. Sometimes they're uh, not very informative, but it's going to shrink the balance sheet to combat inflation. And that remains a big question around the speed of tightening. Um, so when it says the balance sheet, I'm not sure if it's referring to cash or debt or CPI. Okay, well, moving on. Here we've got the cover of CNBC, and as I was just mentioning, the disruption of businesses. Um, And this phrase is kind of where we are right now. Most people are going to get COVID who've spent a couple years trying to avoid it in quarantine, but this Omicron variant, though less severe, is highly virulent, and it just seems like everybody's catching it. I thought this was kind of interesting. Maybe less on the equity markets, but still curious. Um, this may be suggesting an overkill in China, um, trying to go for zero COVID, um, suggesting that it's really had the impact on the retail activity and the industrial is and manufacturing has not really suffered so much. Factory production. Others by city of Los Angeles factories are typically spread out in suburban industrial parks or industrial living dormitories. Oh, really? Great. Okay. And just before we wrap it up, we'll see if there are any exciting headlines on Seeking Alpha. We're certainly still seeing a number of folks kind of preaching doom and gloom that the markets are overextended. And when you look at some valuation measurements, they make a case. Yet it's been just kind of hammering the headlines for so long that um, doesn't seem to be really hanging on or ever proving itself. See if we can find any of those writers out there here. Um, oh, here's one. Okay, gold logs highest price of 2022. Big deal. It's only 2 weeks into 2022. And inflation is fuel. This gold has been a curious element of that because it's traditionally such a great inflation hedge, but inflation has been a threat for over 6 months. People have been talking about it, and the performance of gold has not really been that stellar. We'll see if we can get a chart here over the past couple years. Yeah. So, okay, this only goes back to April. Um, so kind of enjoyed because I believe it did fall with the equity markets during COVID, and then see it had its strike back, and while the equity markets have continued to march up, gold has really kind of languished, and so those people who are following it are often still expecting that it's going to be robust and kind of reclaim its position as an inflation hedge. Um, this sounds like it might be a little bearish. Well, yeah, like I was saying, this is a short one, not really planned, but had to had to acknowledge this amazing day where we are seeing these unprecedented levels of infections. Um, very very strange time to be alive. But this chart turns out to be true, and there are no more scary variants ahead, then we can say goodbye to it, as well as this podcast.